Have you ever noticed that the friendlier you are, the more people ignore your boundaries, take advantage of your time, and assume you'll always say yes? Today, we're going to expose the hidden weakness behind being too nice. You think friendliness brings power, but in reality, it often invites exploitation. Let's break that illusion and learn to rule, not to serve. Let me ask you something simple. Why are you so friendly to everyone? Why do you smile at people who don't deserve your time, agree with people who haven't earned your respect, and offer kindness as if it's a never-ending resource? You've been taught that being friendly is a virtue, that if you're nice, people will like you. If you're warm, you'll be accepted. If you're generous, you'll be loved. But let me teach you something that no one tells you, not in schools, not in self-help books, not even in your so-called leadership seminars. Friendliness is not free, it's currency. And like all currency, its value depends on how it's spent. Who you give it to, how often, and under what conditions. When you give your friendliness to everyone, it stops meaning anything. When you offer your time, energy, and presence to anyone who asks for it, you cheapen yourself. You become ordinary, replaceable, easy. Think of the people you respect the most. Are they the ones who always said yes, the ones who were always available, the ones who never pushed back, never had boundaries, never made you earn their approval? Or are they the ones who were selective with their energy, the ones who made their time feel valuable, the ones who didn't smile at every passing face? You know the answer, but still you keep giving. You laugh at jokes that aren't funny just to be polite. You respond to every message instantly, afraid someone might think you're rude. You let people take and take and take, because you're scared to say no. And what happens? Do they respect you more? Do they value you more? No, they expect it. They begin to treat your attention like a public fount, and always flowing, always available, never special. Until one day, they don't even thank you anymore. They just drink and walk away. Machiavelli understood this long ago. He wrote that generosity, when used improperly, leads not to love, but to contempt. That if a ruler is too giving, he will lose everything trying to keep others pleased. Not because giving is wrong, but because people don't know how to value what's easy. Human nature is transactional, and while this may sound cold, it's true. We only treasure what we can't always have. The same principle applies to your friendliness. When you smile at everyone, people don't see warmth, they see weakness. When you try to please everyone, people don't feel grateful. They feel powerful over you. They realize you want their approval, and in that moment you lose leverage, because now you're the one chasing, you're the one hoping, you're the one bending. A Machiavellian mind understands every interaction is a negotiation. Every gesture, every tone, every word you give carries weight, and when you give too much of it away, you become like a merchant throwing coins into the street, hoping someone will call him generous, but no one does. Instead, they see a fool, a man who doesn't understand the value of his own gold. And when your friendliness becomes expected, it turns into a tool that others use against you. They begin to assume you'll always agree, that you'll never say no, that you'll always be accommodating. And the moment you dare to act differently, to draw a line, to assert yourself, they get angry because you taught them that you were easy. And when you try to change the rules, they feel betrayed. But it was never betrayal, it was correction. And now you must deal with the consequences of your own generosity. Understand this. Friendliness is not about being fake. It's not about manipulation, it's about awareness of when to offer it, when to withhold it, and most importantly, who is worth receiving it. You should not be friendly because it's expected. You should be friendly because it serves a purpose. Because it opens a door, builds a bridge, gains influence, or earns loyalty. And when it does none of those things, when it becomes a habit rather than a strategy, you're not being kind, you're being careless. You wouldn't leave your wallet open on the table for strangers to take. So why would you leave your time, your approval, your energy exposed for anyone who wants to use it? Friendliness is currency, and every time you give it away for nothing, you pay a price. You want to be liked. That's your silent addiction. You hide it behind words like kindness, humility, empathy. But what you're really doing is negotiating for approval. You're trying to buy affection with your personality. You want people to smile when they see you. You want them to say, "He's such a nice guy." You want to walk into a room and be received warmly, praised, included. But have you ever stopped to ask yourself, at what cost? The need to be liked is a prison disguised as a reward, and those who are trapped in it rarely notice the chains because they're too busy smiling. You think being likable makes you strong. It doesn't. It makes you predictable, and predictable people are easy to control. You begin to operate on one unspoken rule: I will do what keeps them comfortable. So you avoid saying what you really think. You agree when you disagree. You laugh when you're irritated. You say yes when every cell in your body wants to say no. Because somewhere in your mind, you've convinced yourself that harmony is more important than truth, that safety is more valuable than respect. But likability is not power, it's performance. You become a performer for people who don't even deserve a seat in your audience. You shrink yourself to fit inside their comfort zone. You turn your edges into curves so you can avoid offense. You trade your voice for applause, and yet, you're still not truly liked. Because here's the irony no one tells you. The more you chase approval, the less you receive it. The more agreeable you become, the more invisible you become. People forget those who try to blend in. They don't admire them. They use them. Why? Because if you're trying to be liked by everyone, then you stand for nothing. And if you stand for nothing, you are nothing. A Machiavellian mind sees this trap from miles away. Likability is not the goal. It is a tool. It is to be used when needed, not clung to like a desperate shield. Being liked is a tactic, not a personality. The ruler who seeks love from his people becomes a slave to their moods. The man who needs constant approval becomes afraid to offend, and the one who cannot bear to be disliked becomes easy to manipulate. You are not meant to be universally accepted. You are meant to be respected, and those two are not the same. Respect is built on firmness, on clarity, on boundaries that do not bend with the weather. But likability is soft, it's comfortable, it's passive. They like you because you don't challenge them. They like you because you say what they want to hear. They like you because you make them feel good about themselves. But what does that make you? A mirror, a puppet, a tool for someone else's comfort. And then you wonder why they don't take you seriously, why they ignore your input, why they ask you for help but never ask for your opinion, why they only remember you when they need something, because you trained them to see you that way. And the more likable you try to become, the less authority you carry. There is no weight in your words because people don't fear losing your respect. There's no urgency in your presence because people know you'll always be there. When a man is too concerned with being liked, he gives others the power to shape his behavior. He becomes reactive, defensive, and easily swayed. The truth is this: people don't truly like the ones who try hardest to be liked. They sense the desperation beneath the smile. They sense the insecurity behind the charm. They sense the need. And neediness is not attractive. It's a signal that you have no internal compass, that you rely on others to tell you who you are. But the Machiavellian does not operate like that. He offers his likability as bait, not as identity. He can charm, disarm, make others laugh and feel at ease, but it's all intentional, calculated, timed, used for effect, not for self-worth. He knows when to hold it back. He understands that the power lies not in being likable, but in being untouchable. You may admire him or hate him, but you will never confuse him with a follower, and that's the difference. Because when you stop needing to be liked, you stop being owned. Closeness is comforting, but power does not live in comfort. You were raised to believe that being close to people brings you strength, that connection is everything, that intimacy builds trust, and trust builds influence. That idea works until it doesn't. Because what no one teaches you is this: the closer people feel to you, the more they begin to disrespect you. It starts small. They stop saying please, they interrupt you mid-sentence. They assume you'll understand when they're late, when they cancel, when they forget. They become casual, because closeness, in the wrong hands, turns kings into equals. It dissolves boundaries. It strips away the aura of authority you once had. people begin to treat you not as someone above the fray, but as someone within it. And once they place you in the same category as themselves, you've already lost half your power. Why do you think rulers sit on thrones? It's not for comfort, it's for distance. The throne is elevated. It's isolated. It creates space between the ruler and the ruled, because space creates mystery, and mystery creates respect. The moment you become too accessible, too familiar, too emotionally available, you kill the atmosphere of awe that power depends on. Familiarity is the enemy of fear, and make no mistake, power is not built on love alone. It is stabilized by fear, respect, and distance. The lion does not play in the fields with sheep. He watches from the shadows, moves with silence, strikes with precision. That space between him and the rest of the herd is what makes him feared, and that fear, that's what protects him. But if the lion started living among the sheep, brushing shoulders with them daily, smiling, playing, acting like one of them, how long before they forget what he is? They wouldn't even run when he roars, because they'd know him too well. This is what happens when you get too close to people. They see too much. They learn your patterns, your habits, your weaknesses. They start seeing you not as a leader, but as someone predictable, familiar, equal, and once that happens, your leverage evaporates. You become the friend, the buddy, the guy who's always there. They don't listen because they respect you. They listen because they don't want to upset you. That's not power, that's appeasement. The Machiavellian does not make this mistake. He never allows himself to become too accessible. He understands that distance is not just physical, it's psychological. Emotional, strategic, he knows when to withdraw, when to hold silence, when to disappear, because absence speaks louder than presence. When you're always present, people start to tune you out. But when you remove yourself, when you vanish, go cold, step back, they feel it. They notice, they wonder what happened, they reevaluate. Your silence forces them to think, to analyze, to feel the weight of your absence, and in that space, power builds. You do not need to be constantly available to be remembered. In fact, the more rare your presence is, the more it echoes when it's felt. Closeness makes people feel safe. Distance makes them respect you. There is a delicate balance, but most people never learn it. They give too much too soon. They let people into their world too quickly, thinking it will bring loyalty, but what it brings is expectation. They expect you to respond fast. They expect you to say yes. They expect access, and when you don't give it, they turn on you. They accuse you of changing, of being distant, cold, arrogant. They say this because they no longer control you. They say this because you broke the illusion of closeness, and with it, you took back the power they thought they had over you. You do not owe the world constant access. You do not need to explain your distance, justify your silence, or apologize for creating space. Because in that space, you hold leverage, and leverage is not found in warmth. It's found in restraint. A man who is distant can never be fully understood. And what cannot be fully understood cannot be fully controlled. Most people spend their lives trying to control other people. They manipulate, they persuade, they chase influence by changing what others think, feel, or do. And in doing so, they overlook the one battlefield where true power is won or lost, their own mind. If you can't control your emotions, you will never control outcomes. And if your emotions control you, then others don't need to lift a finger to defeat you. You'll destroy yourself on command just by how they make you feel. Watch the average person. Their behavior is a direct response to their feelings. If they're angry, they lash out. If they're anxious, they pull back. If they're excited, they overcommit. If they're jealous, they sabotage. Their emotions are their ruler, not their tool. But that is not how the Machiavellian thinks. He doesn't fight to control others. He fights to master his own reactions. Because when your emotions are disciplined, your behavior becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability is power. You see, when someone knows how to make you react, they own you. If they know they can insult you and trigger anger, they'll provoke you to make mistakes. If they know they can flatter you and gain loyalty, they'll use praise to trap you. If they know they can shame you into submission, they'll wield guilt like a weapon. But if you become immune, if you can hear criticism without reacting, receive praise without inflating, walk through conflict without losing your center, then no one can move you. You become unshakable. People mistake emotional control for coldness. It's not cold, it's focused. When your feelings are in check, you don't become less human. You become more strategic. You no longer seek revenge just because you're hurt. You no longer explain yourself out of fear of being misunderstood. You no longer offer forgiveness as a performance or love as a transaction. You act with intention, not impulse. The man who needs to control people will always be chasing. He'll bribe, beg, manipulate, charm, threaten, just to get others to stay in line, and still they won't. Because people don't obey forever. They change, they drift, they betray. But the man who controls his emotions doesn't need to chase. His detachment gives him clarity. He sees betrayal before it arrives. He notices shifts in tone, behavior, energy, because he's not distracted by emotional noise. He reads people like a surgeon studies anatomy. Every gesture, every glance, every delay tells a story. And when you can see clearly, you can move precisely. Control over relationships is an illusion. You can't force loyalty. You can't dictate love. You can't bend another person's mind forever. And the more you try to control people, the more they resent you. The more you push, the more they pull away. But your emotions, those are yours. That battlefield is yours. And that's where the real game is played. When you're insulted and you respond with silence instead of rage, you gain ground. When someone tries to trip you and you refuse to fold, they lose power. When chaos breaks out and you remain calm while others unravel, you become the center of gravity. Emotions are energy. And if you let that energy spill into the wrong places, you weaken your position. But if you learn to harness it, redirect it, and use it with precision, you become dangerous in the eyes of those who can't. Look around you. The strongest men are not the loudest. They're the most composed. They walk slowly, speak less, smile only when necessary, because they're not trying to control what others think of them. They're focused on controlling how they respond to the world. That is the true edge. And when people realize they can't read you, can't move you, can't predict your next move, they start to respect you, sometimes fear you. You become a puzzle they can't solve, a presence they can't shake. And all of it, not because you controlled them, but because you mastered yourself. So now you understand. Friendliness, when given without calculation, becomes your downfall. Likability, when chased, turns into chains. Closeness, when overused, kills respect. And emotion, when uncontrolled, opens the door to manipulation. You were taught to lead with kindness, to be soft, to be liked, but you were never taught the cost. And the cost is your power. If you want to be respected, you must become scarce. If you want to be influential, you must become unreadable. If you want to rise above the noise, you must stop playing the role of the agreeable servant and start thinking like the strategist. Machiavelli never said to be cruel. He said to be measured, to use what others waste, to act, not react, to bend the world to your will, not your emotions. Because in the end, it is not the friendliest who rule. It is the one who knows when to hold back, when to disappear, when to strike. Power does not belong to the warm. It belongs to the cold and calculated.